Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order this regular board meeting of the Urbana Park District Board of Commissioners. Our first item of business is, remote attendance. There is no one requesting remote attendance for tonight's meeting. So our next item is Roman numeral number 2, adjourn to an executive session. Do we have a motion to that effect?
I move in accordance with Section 2, Part C, Exception Number 1 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of discussing an employment matter.
Second.
That's moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or questions on the point? Hearing none, let's do a roll call, starting with Cedric.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously with all 4 commissioners currently present voting in the affirmative. So we will...
We'll use a small conference room.
Yeah.
I'd like to reconvene this regular board meeting of the Urbana Park District Board of Commissioners. The next item is to accept or amend the remaining parts of the agenda. We have a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
I move to accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
That's moved and seconded. Any discussion on the point? Do a roll call starting with Meredith.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously. So it takes us to the public comment portion. Is there anyone here from the public wishing to address the board? Seeing none, then we have new staff introductions.
We did have a couple that are going to come back next meeting. Our 2 interns, Cam and Kaya. And then Kyle
will be here next month as well.
Kyle will be here next month as well, but we do have Tim here that Janet's going to introduce.
Hello, everybody. I'm here for community programs to introduce our new full-time office service specialist. This is Tim Plunkett. I will let him tell you about himself.
Hello, everybody. So I guess just a little bit about myself. I moved here in 2023 into the Champaign-Urbana area. More recently moved into the city limits of Urbana last September. Before that I lived pretty rural Illinois, out farther west. And being in Urbana has been just a great experience. I really love, the Park District obviously. Got here in 2023 and immediately started visiting all the parks that I could, everything that I could, take a walk around and sit around and read. Yeah, it's been just a really great experience being here, and I really look forward to working with you all.
Awesome.
Welcome.
You were working part-time for us?
I was working part-time at the Nature Center, which I started when I moved here in 2023. And yeah, I worked there until I started at Phillips just last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then we'll be back next month with our interns.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
So there's not an additional one. Okay, we're done with introductions to the next one.
Yep.
That takes us to the UPDAC report, which we had in writing. Any questions or comments on that? The UPDAC report, or? Okay. Hearing none, then that moves us to the consent agenda. And on the consent agenda for this evening are approval of the minutes of the January 14, 2025 regular board meeting, approval of minutes of the January 14, 2025 executive session, and approval of the minutes of the January 22, receipt of the monthly departmental reports, namely administration, planning and operations, and recreation. Action to accept the philanthropy report and gifts listed with gratitude, and approval of the monthly paid accounts payable. And under the rules on our consent agenda, for those who are at home, it is the purview of any single commissioner to remove any or all of these items from the consent agenda for separate discussion and action. Is there anyone wishing to remove anything from the consent agenda?
So I move to approve all the action items on the consent agenda and accept all the information items listed on the consent agenda in an omnibus manner.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, and under the rules of the consent agenda, there's to be no further discussion at this point. Let's do a roll call starting at the
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously with all four commissioners present voting. Takes us to reports. First up, financial reports.
Good evening. As usual, we'll begin with our fund balance reports. These are the reports showing our receipts or revenues and expenditures for the prior 12-month period, also the budget for the current period, and also the preliminary and audited results for the 9 months ending on January 31st, 2025. And beginning on page 1, this is labeled as Sum 1 for all of us. These are all of the funds excluding our capital improvements fund. Noting here that total revenues, $13,960,121. This is essentially right even with last month as well as last year. And then total expenditures here are showing $11,655,942. Same thing with the expenses, just almost right on par with where we were last month as well as last year. This gives us a surplus after 9 months, meaning an excess of revenues over expenditures of $2,304,179. Page 2, Sum 2, this is the capital improvements fund by itself. And here we see revenues totaling $6,673,334. That number went up considerably. This was thanks to the $750,000 from the museum capital grant that we finally received for the Outdoor Learning Pavilion. Expenditures here listed $6,319,269. This is only slightly lower than last month and about $200,000 lower than last year. So lower expenditures, we'd love to hear it. This gives us also a surplus of more revenue than expenditure, and that is a surplus of $354,065. Last page, Sum 3. This is all funds district-wide. Here we're just noting at the very bottom here that ending fund balance for the district as a whole, $12,765,406. And then the remaining reports, excuse me, are the individual fund reports for our 3 main working funds, which are general, recreation, and museum. And the last page is our UIAC indoor pool fund. Any questions or comments on the revenues and expenses? All right, moving on. Our second set of reports are the treasurer's reports. This is a report of the amount of money the cash has in the district as a whole on a single day of January 31st, 2025. Noting here $14,275,409.62. Page 2, the top section lists the amounts that we have in interest-bearing accounts, and of that $14,275,000 on hand, $10,206,426 is invested in investments at varying rates. Staying on page 2, the bottom portion there is our interfund loans, and we did return some of the interfund loans to the rec fund. $120,000 was returned to them. Working on getting the other 130 returned back. So that's still a work in progress, but we did have activity returning some of those funds during January. Page 3, in the last section of our treasurer's report, this is, lists all the disbursements for the month of January, listing here vendor payments as well as payroll. The vendor payments match the accounts payable report that was in the consent agenda. And then noticing here at the bottom, the total disbursements of funds, $884,248.91. If there are no questions on that, I'll present you the treasurer's report for audit.
I move we accept the treasurer's report for audit.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, let's do a roll call, starting with Meredith.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously.
Then our last set of reports, these are the capital budget reports. Areas highlighted with an asterisk, highlighted but marked with an asterisk, indicate new activity during the month of January. And page 1 is our 2019A capital improvements budget. Here we did receive $364,168 from DCEO. This is part of the grant agreement there at Hawk. And we have just a few expenditures down here. We had $68,762 and also $1,735. This was for IT. And this was for number 5 and 6. Again, these are all at the Health and Wellness Center at Hawk. Also, $163,000. $595. This was for 421. All of those were taken out of donations. And then using our general fund transfer, $18,412. This is a long list of miscellaneous FF&E, furniture, pictures, and equipment. Getting those things buttoned up. We're almost to the end. Next page is our newest capital budget, 2025. There was no new activity during January. 2024, here we had an expenditure, $27,867. This was for the purchase of a new custodial van. 2023, we had a single expense, well, it was 2 expenditures actually, totaling $12,250. This was directly related to Southbridge Park Engineering. This was for invoice number 3 and 4. Uh, 2022 capital budget, we did receive $44,407 from ITEP. This was in regards to the Crystal Lake Broadway project, and that takes it to completion. And then we have one expenditure, $7,472. This was to Mid-Illinois. This was for, I think, construction number 8. 2021, here is the $750,000 that we received from the museum capital grant in relation to the outdoor learning pavilion. No expenditures activity during January in that budget. And then 2020 and 2019, neither one had any new activity during the month of January. That's a quiet month. Weird. Anyway, at this time, I'll turn it over. If you all don't have any questions on the capital budgets, send it over to Derek and Andy.
Okay, just have a few quick updates on some projects other than health and wellness for the first time in probably 3 years. On Prairie Play, you may remember we had a second round of picket sales. Kelsey opened that up around the holidays, and that closed. That second round of sales closed at the end of January. So we had an additional 82 pickets total being sold. And so all the names and the wording associated with those new pickets have now been sent to our sales representative. That's where we got the pickets from. We ordered 150 extras total, and that was to make sure, one, that we could do another round of sales, but also we wanted to make sure that they were all within the same run when they were produced so that we had the same colors. So this guy's been holding on to these for 9 months now, and he's got the order. So he'll be routing the new pickets and then shipping those to us by the end of this month, hopefully, and then we should
Our goal is to have them all installed from that last round of sales by our celebration at the park on May 3rd, which should not be a problem. And then kind of final thing with Prairie Play, similarly with health and wellness, we're closing out final invoices, so all of our contracts will be paid through, and then that will allow us to process the final reimbursement paperwork for the grants, and then close all those items out for both projects. So later tonight we have an action on the overall cooperative project between Vermilion County and Champaign County Forest Preserve Districts and ourselves. Later tonight it's on our portion. We have a recommendation for award for our trailhead, but just to keep everyone updated on what's going on with the rest of the project, we meet monthly with all the parties and give each other updates and talk about what's going on and work cooperatively, of course. And with the Champaign County Forest Preserve, they actually just had a bid opening as well for tree removals associated with the trail expansion. And their bids, like bids that we just received ourselves later tonight, also came in very competitively. I think they were saying it's $100,000. Tim, do you remember $100,000 less than their budget estimate that they got for their bid for tree removal? So we also got similarly good numbers on a couple of our bids here recently too. And so they took that out of their overall trail bid so they could get that work done still this winter. They're anticipating bidding the remaining trail work in March. And so that'll get the kind of remaining portions you can see here, primarily St. Joseph to Ogden, and then on the other side of Ogden to Oakwood. Unfortunately, they did receive some bad news on this bridge here, and that's was originally reviewed by IDOT, and IDOT inspected it, that it would be usable for the trail project. The Kaskaskia Engineering, who's part of our design team, reviewed it as well and has some concerns, and they're recommending that we either replace it or repair it. The Champaign County Forest Preserve District's looking to get a second opinion now before they kind of move forward with their overall trail bid. But from what preliminary cost estimates are, it's pretty significant. And actually it's should be cheaper, less expensive to actually replace the bridge entirely rather than repairing this bridge. I think it's hard to see in this picture, but it was built in 1922.
Where is it at?
This is around Muncie. It's in this area here.
Okay.
It's in the Vermilion County portion of their project.
What's the nature of the problem?
Structurally, they have some concerns.
Deteriorating?
Kaskaskia does, but so they're calling on ERA to just give a second opinion and take a look at it with Jacob Wolf. That's who did our bridge reviews as well.
Tim, how long will is it full length, all said and done, the full length?
It's 24.5 miles of the current KRT that we're working on. And there's sections in both counties,
Right.
about half, but a little bit more in Champaign.
We have an open house tomorrow night at Health and Wellness Center. We've flyers neighbors all along the Urbana section, and we'll be there talking about the trailing facility. We'll also have the Forest Preserve District folks talking about their sections, and we're also going to talk a little about Baker's Lane as well in case there's questions that come up there.
And then I wanted to bring up another 2025 project. This was in our 2025 capital budget and our ADA budget, and we wanted to begin to evaluate for the replacement of this ramp that leads into the Phillips Rec Center. So this was cited in our most recent ADA audit as a priority 2 serious, and we've also received some comments from patrons that this ramp has caused some difficulty as well. And the recommendation is to replace it. Right, currently the running slope is above the 8.33%, which is the requirement to be below that on the running slope for ADA. And then there's also a recommendation for ramp handrails. There's currently handrails over on the sides of the planter here on the masonry, but the recommendation is to have basically pour new concrete here to get it to the correct grade, and then add some new handrails.
Like
So
a center rail? Or,
I thought it was going to be 2, but so basically what's happening now is we're engaging with IGW, and they're going to do, they also have an engineer that they're having on board as well, and they're going to do construction drawings for us. The cost estimates shouldn't be, in their estimation at this point, at a threshold that we would need to bid it, but we're going to take their construction documents and then go, get pricing from a number of contractors in our area to do the work. Timeline-wise, I think, we can probably get the construction drawings going this spring and summer and get pricing, and I'd assume we're probably going to want to avoid camp season to do this, and it'll probably be sometime in the fall.
So would the rails be, like, we had 2 rails, would they be like here? So it's heading up to this, to the auto door?
Yeah, I don't know yet. I'm
Don't know.
assuming it's going to be like here and here on the outside, and just move these in and not have one in the center, but we'll work with the architect on that a little bit more.
I was just going to add, when we built the building originally in 1995, I think we, different era, we kind of celebrated the fact that we weren't required to put in railings. Obviously today we regret that, wish it would have been put in place, and I think that does kind of indicate how we've evolved and improved, where we try to put the customer in their use and the understanding of what accessibility is all about.
Busey Woods bridge replacement is something I kind of bring back to the board every couple months as we're moving through the process. DCEO in the last month requested our BEP utilization plan, and so that's something that we can't provide until we have a contract with bids and who's doing the work and at what cost. Derek and Keenan worked on a letter that would acknowledge that in the future, after we receive bids, we'll adhere to those BEP requirements. But really, we need to get the agreement processed and finally approved so that we know that we have that funding for sure. And I think it's looking like it might be another 2 or 3 months from Derek's conversations with DCEO to when we might see that final agreement completed. And so that's what we're going to wait for until we have ERA review our planned scope for the replacement of the bridge, the drainage district, and then move forward after that meeting on construction level drawings that we'd be able to send out to bid. And bridges have long lead times typically, so I'm just a reasonable estimate of construction. I'm thinking we might have bid documents working in the summer and fall of 2025, potentially bid winter of 2026, spring 2026. And with that lead time, that could push our construction into late 2026 or 2027. That's just kind of what a good estimate right now would be what we're looking at for the project. The DCO funds themselves, once we have that agreement executed, we have 2 years. And then just a couple of notes on some other upcoming projects and board approvals. We will have a bid out at the end of this week. It's always the exciting time and every few years for a portable toilet bid. So that's going to go out at the end of this week. We'll have bid openings at the end of February, and I'm anticipating to have a recommendation to you all at the March board meeting. And what we typically do, it's typically been every 3 years, but we bid the base bid as 1 year service, and then we have an alternate for year 2 and an alternate for year 3. So we could be awarding only 1 year, but typically in the past we've had the full 3 years. So the last time we had this award was 3 years ago. And then we have a couple priority painting projects that we're getting moving. One of them is with Carl Pavilion, and that was in capital budget 2024. There's been some other repairs that need to get completed on the pavilion that we're still looking at with the plaster as well. And I'm working with one of our painting contractors that helped us get a bunch of estimates previously to try to get some better ideas of cost, what we're looking at here. And then in capital 2025, we also have painting for the Ambux restrooms. And I'm meeting with that contractor in the next week or so to get a price on that. And my goal with him usually is to try to get work in the spring. They have a lot of jobs for the school districts that take up a lot of summers, I've noticed with a number of painting contractors. So I'm trying to get at least some things ready to go for when we have springtime. Another item in Capital 2025, Derek, Shane, and I were just talking about today, is the Canada Pavilion, or I guess shed, I should say, not pavilion, demolition. So I think we have $15,000 for that. I could be misremembering. Our plan is to work with an electrician and contractors basically to retire the utilities there. It's electrical and water. And then our staff plans to demo the building itself. So it's kind of a split job of in-house work and with contractors. But that's something that we were just talking today about getting moving and getting ready for potentially this spring. And I'll keep everyone updated as we have future meetings on these. That's it. Happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you for those reports. Takes us then to the executive director's report.
Sure. A few updates. One, I just wanted to start out, we didn't get a really good chance at the opening of the Health and Wellness Center. Kind of thank our internal team. So I just wanted to point out what a great job I think our leadership team did working with the board team. I think that was a time where we had rapid pressures and decisions to be made. It seemed like every couple of weeks we'd get new updates on our budget that continued to move in the upward direction, and everybody still kept the main focus of how do we help Urbana get healthy and well. And I just really feel good. It was probably one of the most collaborative projects. We also had help from the foundation. I think their fundraising team worked really well again with the board staff. So I want to appreciate that. The work Andy did as project manager was stellar. Lots of ups and downs with that project, and he was able to walk us through and get things done. I also want to mention the health and wellness staff, Jamil, Kern, Alex, Leslie, Kyle, and Bethany, and all the building staff just did an amazing job. Once we got ready to move in, took care of all of that and got us set up really well for the opening. Appreciate that. Obviously, our A&E teams worked really well with staff. We always have challenges because you're coming maybe from different perspectives of owner and consultant, but we found a way to continue. Our artists that were on the project did stellar work. Binky Donnelly, Peter Michael, and Langston Alston all contributed, I think, really the heart and soul of the project, which were the pieces there. So just wanted to point out what an amazing thing we did. Worked really well together. We didn't have the opportunity in the outdoor cold to call every single name out, and I'm not making mention of every name. All of our, again, planning and operations staff helped. Matt Ball, just, key work, Shane Newell, Rich McMahon, all contributed a great deal to that project. So looking back, I think it will be something we're really proud of and will propel us to go forward. Moving on, other thanks and notes, just wanted to let you all know that Christina Mott received her Certified Therapeutic Recreation Specialist certification. She's very excited. Cork and I are going to meet with her to have a coffee and celebrate her achievement, but that was something she worked really hard for, and just wanted to let you all know she achieved it. Moving on with my list of items, just want to remind commissioners the 2025 IAPD Institute, the leadership program for commissioners, is coming up. If you have any interest in attending or participating, we can set you up. Just let our office know. I think I had a chance on the way back from the conference to talk to Laura and Cedric just about leadership opportunities, and IAPD is very interested in any of our commissioners getting involved. I talked to Peter Murphy again. He's very interested in seeing Urbana people involved. So if you have any questions, let me know. Moving on, the IAPD Legislative Breakfast is scheduled for March 4th in the morning at Homeland Lake Preserve. We'll get more information out. I think we've sent some information to you. But the Forest Preserve is hosting. I did send out a note later. Go ahead, questions?
Yeah,
Please interrupt me.
I guess we're just I have like a holding the date, but I haven't seen the actual agenda, so
Yes.
I don't know what should we
We'll see around 8 o'clock. and we're
Yeah,
done
but like
around
to RSVP,
11.
I mean, I'm planning to attend.
Okay, I know
But-
Paul is reaching out.
Okay,
Now, I somehow thought I saw that it started at 8:30.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, around 8:30, I say 8 because we got it around
Yeah.
but I
8.
think that
It takes a while to get
because
out.
it was at home, or it was gonna be later.
Correct.
Right, okay.
So we'll get that, all the details out, but hopefully everybody can come. I sent another note about our presentation out. Our team wants to kind of get our work together. I know Laura's responded already that she wouldn't be able to join us. But I assume we'll take our opportunity to make a presentation along with the other districts to promote or communicate our needs to our legislative body. After the legislative breakfast, obviously, the spring legislative conference is coming up, April 29th and 30th. The day at the Capitol is on the 29th, so we have a lot of things happening in Springfield. Wanted to update the board that the Illinois Bike Summit is going to be May 7th in Springfield. The last several years it's been in town, but as more of us can go, it's easy to pop over even for a few sessions. But it will be in Springfield this year. And I think part of the reason they're going to, Ride Illinois, our statewide organization, is going to be doing some lobbying in Springfield. So I think they're trying to get a good show of force there and bring their bicycles. Next, I just wanted to touch on federal funding impacts of the UPD. You may have seen in the paper, both of our local mayors have talked about concerns of not getting federal funding. I think we did a quick review and determined we didn't have anything on the hook that we're not going to get reimbursed, that we are concerned we won't be. Obviously, some of our ARPA funds are federal, we spent those down. We learned the city of Urbana's high-tech trail project at Baker's Lane is state funded, so I think they're in good shape there. So looking at our staff again, just to be sure, I don't think we have anything on the hook or that we're in trouble with.
I'd say one possible one, we've got a grant for some EV charging stations, and that may be targeted, but.
That's right, right. Not sure how electric energy
It's like a
will fare in the
$30,000
next round.
It's a $30,000 grant that will go towards
Right.
stations.
Things that we are tracking, though, just a reminder, programs like LawCon that we have typically historically used to buy land is federal funds. So maybe it's just a time to take a pause on federally funded projects until we know what direction things really will head in. But at least the good news, I don't think we have any immediate worries or anything that's on the line or on the hook.
It was just future projects, like with the university,
I
that
think so.
larger project with the University of Illinois, right?
Right.
That was,
Right.
and
I did want to reiterate too, though we did, I think, send information this week or last week, starting to blur, but, we're staying in contact with Representative Bazinski. She had awarded the $3.1 million originally, it's now been reduced, and I think the latest is we're not really sure where or when those funds might come to us. I recommend we just continue to hold on and continue to communicate with the representative, and nothing is stopping us from making another request. So I encourage us to do that. Make all of our legislative requests made known. Just want to touch just a little on the future of You Belong Here. I'm just struck by the irony of the amazing work that we were able to do in Urbana and continuing to get a lot of people noticing and really attached and sort of benefiting from our You Belong Here approach. And it's ironic to me to hear completely different stories. I think they use the term DEI woke when they talk about that. I don't really know what that is, but I need to use the words diversity, equity, and inclusion every time to make sure that, things like, our CUSR inclusion programs. I can't imagine anybody being against somebody having a recreational experience with somebody to help assist them. So when we think of inclusion, it's important to think about that equity. I think of our foundation and all of our donors that made special effort to make sure they gave, to make sure somebody else might have a chance to come to the Health and Wellness Center. Obviously, that donor may not have questioned their ability, but making sure there was an equitable response, get people there. And then, I think just being in Urbana, I think you can appreciate the diversity that we have both in landscape and amenities and in people and our infrastructure and resources. So it just seems to be a very different conversation locally. So I do want to stay locally focused and reassure anyone watching at home we're deeply committed to you belong here. Nothing we can see would change that. And unfortunately, we hope the discussions and things going on don't become a distraction to our work here locally. It's too critical, and the people that are at risk really need our help. So I did want to mention that, and make sure that our listeners at home know that we are fully behind it and have no plans to change it. In fact, with our new strategic focus coming up, in the next year, I think it would be a good time to take a look at that and see, where folks are with that. Moving along, we've prepared, we're notified that ICE immigration may be coming to visit our facilities, so we worked and got some information. We worked through with the Champaign Park District that we shared with our staff so that they're prepared if anybody from ICE makes a visit to our facilities or camps or any of our public events in the future. Also, we had staff training last week to prepare us for independent audits, and that's just really a good customer service opportunity to train our staff that there could be individuals or groups that are intent of coming into public facilities to likely test the staff's knowledge of first right amendments and that they can film in certain places. So if you're in our buildings, you may notice we put up access restrictions. Obviously, there are public spaces in our building, like a room like this, for example, where we have public meetings. But there's also private workstations that often contain sensitive information, that shouldn't be filmed or made accessible to people. So we've tried to clearly delineate how that works, and want to thank Laura and all the office managers for working very quickly to get that information together and get staff at least as comfortable as they can be and prepared for that situation. Lastly, I just wanted to close on, we had a really great meeting at the conference. On Thursday, Derek, Savannah Donovan, and I met with Janet Austin and Mickey Lemieux, two of our Meadowbrook artists that we've worked with over the years. And we discussed the idea of trying to bring an environmentally themed sculpture art exhibit to Urbana. I know those two artists are deeply committed in working with the environment. We know that no one locally has done at least a major exhibit. Probably our museums have done work and exhibitions on that, but we have an opportunity to do something outdoor, perhaps in one of our natural areas. Could be a woodland, prairie, maybe wetland. But that's something we want to curate, move along, and really put some thought in. And we talked about a number of ways to do that, how we can go about it. So we'll continue to discuss that, see if we can get that project idea matured. That's all the comments I have. I can answer any questions.
Seeing no questions, thank you very much. Moving on to the President's report. You have a list of upcoming meetings before you here. NASDAQ meeting February 28th. Tim already spoke about the legislative breakfast coming up on March 3rd. On March 4, this is our board study session at 7 p.m., but also there's a tax increment financing district review board meeting at least 3 p.m. that afternoon, where we will get some information, presumably from the city, as to the current state of things in the tips. I hope to attend that. And then March 11th, our regular board meeting. So we'll be presumably doing an evaluation of the executive director and receiving the wage, salary, and merit recommendations. So, and then lastly, March 25th for the March update meeting. In terms of liaison reports, the finance study group met on the 31st of January, and I think we've talked about most of that stuff now. We've been through one study session. After that, the planned next meeting is on the 7th of March. Policy study group.
Wednesday.
It'll be next week.
And Parks Foundation, I assume there was a meeting yesterday, but
It got canceled. It was not a quorum. Lack of quorum. So they determined not to meet.
and next planning off in the future with. I think.
Yes, we'll be meeting minutes.
Alrighty, moving then on down the agenda, we're on number 9, old business. There was no old business removed from the consent agenda, so there's nothing to do under old business. And then under new business, we start out with item A, action to award the annual bid for the program guide printing services.
Corky and Mark have that covered tonight.
Mark, I'll take it away.
All right, good evening. We advertised for bids in the News Gazette in December, and we sent out via email invitations to 25 different printing companies to submit a bid. And the Urbana Park District received 3 sealed bids to print 23,000 copies of the Urbana Park District Program Guide, 3 times in 2025-26. by the bid opening date of January 21st. As you can see in the memo, the amount of the 3 bids, it was a pretty straightforward decision, as the low bid came in with KK Stevens Publishing Company out of Astoria, Illinois. That is the same company we are using now. We're pleased with their work, and we are pleased to recommend that the board accept the bid from KK Stevens Publishing to print the program guide with offset paper and an additional glossy cover and full color paper 3 times in fiscal year 25-26 at a cost not to exceed $48,798.29. They will print 2 editions of 80 pages and 1 edition of 72 pages. It's an annual yearly increase of $1,400.41.
These other 2 vendors were new, right?
Yes, the other 2 vendors were new people bidding. So, and you can see their bids.
Yeah, and one of them is very proud.
Had some numbers crossed out.
Glossy paper?
It's a real glossy paper.
I just wanted, before we, related to this, I mean, there's been discussion back and forth about, do we continue with paper? I'm just curious what our temperature is on that.
So I have a philosophy with it right now. We are trying to do some more evaluation on how people are learning what we're offering. However, I also feel when we're trying to do an outreach and wellness initiative, that by not doing a paper copy, we're missing a lot of people. What I think may be more down the road or possible would be that we may limit the pages. We may do more of a constant mailing of 2 or 3 pages, like for a season or something to that nature, to try to be more effective. But at this point, I don't see us not printing something.
Champagne went paperless last year or the year before?
It's a couple of seasons.
Couple of
Okay,
seasons.
they already are.
However, if we come across the $209,000 as the only bill, then we'll be making some quick changes.
I think they've had, mixed reviews, good. Obviously, if you're all for it, it works for you, get away and feel good about that. The people that prefer to read it or get lost in between us, they're trying to make, opportunities. I did want to note there were a lot of brochures at the conference that were competing, in the competition for I call it graphic awards for brochure. It's a huge space for Waterman's brochure. Probably if you looked at all the details, they would break it down to digital and paper, but still saw a lot of brochures. I don't know if you all did, what your comments were.
Yeah, there's still a lot of them. I'll also say that Jamil and I, when we're meeting with our partner groups, trying to get new things up and going, we always are hearing the comment. Just today we heard the comment, well, Champaign doesn't print them anymore. And it wasn't a positive comment that they were giving us. So ultimately we need to find the balance. Right.
Like in some of the summer camps, you can register before you have to go online to register before the brochure's even out.
Right.
So,
Well,
but
we
yeah,
do it-
I mean, I support whatever it needs
Yeah.
to reach the community. I just wanted to use this as an opportunity to
We
sort of
appreciate
touch
that,
base.
and I think we all agree, we wish we could find the most cost-effective way to advertise, get all the message there, and meet each individual preference, you know, if we could pre-order
Mhm.
for other,
Well, we're
at least
doing,
now tied to this.
we're also doing some looking into, you know, sometimes they go to apartments, big bulk, and they never get to anybody, so, you know, how can we work with the post office to make that a better process too? So there's other things that we're looking at to make sure that they all get out, so that, you know, we're doing more of the outreach events, and, you know, we hand out a
Yeah, I
lot
bet you do with
at those events, so,
Would you suspect that many districts are struggling with the same dilemma? Should we go digital or paper or what?
I
It's
did-
community to community.
Excuse me.
Go ahead. You go.
I did a informal survey of several other park districts. I think out of the 11 park districts that responded, 3 still print and mail to every residence. We are one of the 3. I think the other, all but one, does a card with a QR code, and they mail that out and say, here's our online program guide. And then they print, like for us, it would be like maybe 2,000 or 4,000, and have them at their facilities. And if you want a program guide, come in and pick one up. Or and they send the QR code, or they send the postcard out to all residents of the park district area. And then only one across town does nothing. Well, just online, doesn't print anything. So
well,
it's trending toward a hybrid, but
the other key piece to that is it's very staff intensive. And whether you print it or not,
Right,
it's
it's gonna be
still staff intensive because you still have to get the information there. So you don't really save on that piece of it. So it's not like, I mean, you, obviously, you know, you could save some of the $48,000 and use that in another marketing mode. As long as it doesn't hurt, you know, getting the message out. So
Save
you
some
want to be
trees.
very cautious about that.
Yeah, another perspective I heard recently was, we moved Urbana recently, it was last spring when we met the U of I group, came out and they were giving feedback about parks and forest preserve. And the comment was, we moved into our home in Urbana, and a couple of mail cycles later, we got this brochure. It was amazing, listed with all these great things, and it was the most welcoming thing we felt in the community. So just, I had to share that perspective, because I never thought of it as a welcome tool, but that family did. So, a lot of perspectives.
Mark, and this is just for the printing, right? We still pay the post office once they receive
that is
from
correct.
KK.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's
And we
a
have,
big ugly number
yeah.
to the post office.
Yeah.
Well, I move the board accept the bid from KK Stevens Publishing print program guide of offset paper and an additional glossy cover and full cover paper 3 times in fiscal year 2025-26 at a cost not to exceed $48,798.29. They will print 2 editions of 8 pages and 1 edition of 72 pages. This represents a total yearly increase of $1,400.41.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments on the point? Hearing none, let's do a roll call, starting with Meredith.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
Aye.
and that carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the annual recreation statistics report.
Thank you. So I'm gonna move through this real quick. We've got, we met at the study session, we had staff here that did a lot of the highlights. The way this report is put together, we do seasonal evals, so after each program guide or each season, Staff will go in and do highlights, bullet points on the activities. Also some lowlights if there's things to mention from that nature. It's more used to make sure we're reviewing what's happening with all of our programs as we go through them. As we heard last week, all the programs numbers were going really well. Probably the biggest low light was the athletics, where we didn't have the use of Brookins for some election stuff, so those numbers were down. But ultimately, we're very happy with the overall numbers that came in from our program perspective. Rentals, we were down a little on actual number of rentals, but as you can see, that has a net effect of about $3,000, so not a real big issue. That also is something that happens, maybe we're not doing as many rentals because we've got more programs using space. When we do our outreach and our partnerships, we've got more things that are happening in our facilities, and so that in turn means there's not as many opportunities for the community to possibly rent. My whole soapbox here, you always hear me say on the programs offered and canceled, I always like to see between 8 to 10%, usually more closer to 8, where we've been the last 4 or 5 years, where we're offering and are canceling some things, because that shows that staff are, being fiscally responsible and not having, 2 people in a program when, expense-wise, it just doesn't make sense to do that, right? So,
And how much of that is trying new things that just maybe don't fly?
well, and that's just it. It's coming up with new ideas and maybe same types of programs, but only at a different time. And, that time doesn't work. And so it's really paying attention to, number one, what works, right? Because you're not going to have that high of a rate if everything flops and doesn't go. But number two, not being afraid to come up with new ideas, new time slots, things of that nature, to see if there is interest in some new things. And then our volunteers, which is on bottom of page 2, going into page 3. As you can see here, we've had another good year of volunteers throughout all of our programs, and even the planning and ops areas for our work days. So again, I guess in short, just like we heard last week, we had a really good calendar year. So let me make sure that we had a good fiscal year too. All this information is based on the calendar year, not our fiscal year. But there's lots of information in there. I encourage maybe to look through it if you have a chance to kind of see how our program managers and coordinators are commenting, or the things they've seen that needs looked at or adjusted for future.
Curious about the Splash program, which seems to have shrunk by almost a third. Is that?
Yeah, I can fill you in with that. So one thing that we've done this year in particular, but a lot of the funding for Splash as a whole has dried up for the school district. We were only doing 2 schools last fall or winter, because those were the only two schools. Sorry, I can't remember which 2 those were off the top of my head. I know Dr. Williams and King definitely did not have Splash, but 2 of the grade schools did not have Splash last winter. The middle school did have Splash still, and we were still getting funding. I think it's important for you all to know that we have worked out an arrangement where we are offering Splash for the junior high, not the same, it's not the same Splash program, it's more of the park district working on recreational activities after school with the kids. So typically we would get paid through the grant for those things. We're actually doing that out of our own budgets to make sure that we have somewhere for the kids to go in middle school. What we are doing, what we have done, Katie Pickers has applied for the same similar grant that the school district has received in the past, because now they have an offering to where the school district can't apply for them, but your partner agencies can. So we're waiting to hear from them on that.
Is that a local grant or a state grant?
It's state.
But it's not passed through
Federal
federal
money.
No, it's state Board of Education is the group that funds these grants. It started out 20 years ago as a pilot program at the middle school, and then it moved on to the grade schools. And we've been told several times through the course, because they're normally 5 years, and then your funding goes away. But we've been fortunate. We even had, and Michael, you probably remember when we had the State Board of Education come to the school, and we're really bragging up the program that we have in Urbana. And so over the years, we've gone from 100% of the grant to 80% of the grant to 75% of the grant. We've continued at the Park District where we would put in or not be subsidized completely, just so that we can make sure we reach those youth. And so this year for junior high, because we didn't know whether we were going to get the grant or not, I said, well, until we figure it out, we're going to find a way. So roughly for the middle school, we're paying about $15,000 for the course of this year, the school. And it's all towards staffing, supplies, so that's what it costs us.
And it's a variety, when we say recreation, it's sports,
It's
arts,
a-
whatever
yeah.
falls in.
Any of our areas could be there: environmental, community, outreach, athletics.
And the school district at least provides the utilities.
School district still
and
has,
the space.
school district still has some supervision that are there, right, supervising. I do believe they still do a little bit of tutoring, but it's nothing to the level that it used to be at. Hopefully we can get the grant, and we can bring, our middle school's the most important for us at this moment. At least the grade schools have an after-school program. Kind of like a daycare, but it is a program, and there's places for individuals that used to go, but the middle school would have nothing if we didn't have this. So,
Glad to hear we're still,
what's that?
I'm glad to hear we're still figuring it
Oh,
out.
it's huge. It's very important for the kids. It's very important to us when we talk about you belong here and outreach, because we're getting the kids right there after school.
Added it to our list of concerns to talk to legislators about, the state level. After-school funding and support is really critical.
Any other comments or questions? No action to be taken on this, so let's move on to item C, the 2023-24 ADA transition plan updates.
Jim Hill's here. Keenan Portis was not able to join us tonight, but Derek can help fill in.
Got what many of us had the flu, but
Right.
Good evening, everyone. Derek told me I need to go ahead first, so I'll jump in. As Tim mentioned, Keenan isn't here, he really focuses on more of the planning aspect of things, and I work with him on that, and then really kind of tackles some of the programmatic and event side of things regarding but we're working collectively on this whole process. So just a few updates to share with you here. We have developed an ADA matrix team that's comprised of superintendents, Tim's on there as the executive director, and then program managers to discuss how we want to approach and move forward with ADA requirements and the needs for our community, as well as our facilities, programs, and events. That team meets quarterly, so we are taking and discussing how we're approaching things, how we're preparing for events, tackling or addressing any ADA improvement form information that we receive from the public, if any of those are submitted. Keenan and I met with Access Rec to look at some of the options to increase accessibility at our programs and events. So we did receive some samples. I'm not sure he was the one that received those, so we'll make sure that you all get an opportunity to see what that looks like in the future. But they provided us a couple different samples that you can put out at events to kind of paint a picture for you. At neighborhood nights, you have a band kind of playing, maybe not per se under a pavilion, but maybe in a grassy area. So how can patrons get to that area that may be in a wheelchair or have mobility issues? Mobility limitations. So we have some samples that we'll be able to share with you, at least to see how we can make that effective and accessible for those individuals that come to those events. We also are working to implement a safety officer at events. I've had some experience with this over the years, and it's always a good thing to have someone that's at, say for instance, Turkey Trot or Playdate in the Park or Jazz Walk, someone that's specifically designated to address any safety concerns and walk around and be identified as that individual. Take in any comments or feedback from patrons. So pretty much a staff person, but just maybe standing out with a little bit of bright colors.
Camouflage?
Yeah, camouflage. Well,
The
we won't see you,
opposite.
some bright camouflage. But we are implementing that into as many events and programs as we can, just so that we can be responsive to people's needs and requests on site. Could also involve addressing a kid that might have fallen straight to the knee and needed first aid. Approaching that at those events with that type of position is critical, but also very good offering to make sure that the patrons that attend those events know that we are looking out for their best interests in multiple different ways. So, and then lastly we've started some conversations with the Disability Resources and Education Department on campus, better known as DRES, to help them come out and assess some of our events and sidewalks and playgrounds and things like that we mentioned earlier as far as some of the capital projects. So we're working with that group. Conversations will be starting as soon as we'll see what they're willing to provide. A lot of those students do that as volunteer opportunities, especially individuals that are in wheelchairs. So looking at the latest kind of technology, attachments and things that can go to wheelchairs that will actually lend to being able to successfully access our events, programs, especially with any of that access rec material that we may end up purchasing and having providing that at those events. So that's kind of from a programmatic and event standpoint. Some things I want to make sure that we share with you today.
Thanks, Jamil. We also usually talk about things we've accomplished in the last year and the things we're looking to do in the future. With Great Play, we took care of a lot of deficiencies. We're really proud of how accessible that playground is. The sessions I went to at the state conference was how to maintain a boarding-play service. We've already been trained by the installer, but want to make sure we're learning all the tricks of the trade. And I was texting him through the presentation to ask questions that the presenter couldn't answer. So we'll be on top of that. Looking forward, Andy mentioned the ramp at Phillips. That'll be a project in the coming year. The South Beach Trail will be a huge project and major deficiency. We always do the playground top-offs. We got some new portable toilets that we're bidding. It's a surfacing, the mulch, making sure it's full and compliant. The portable toilets, the ones we have currently, most of them are not actually ADA compliant, although they're labeled as such. That's something that our auditor identified in her review, and so we'll be working with our vendor on that. Some other things include relocating park amenities along accessible routes. There's some trash cans that can be relocated. And we also have some restroom grab bar deficiencies and also some signage we want to update to make sure we're fully compliant for identifying our audit. I will mention that next week or next month when you all meet Kyle, our new construction technician, he actually has a lot of proficiency in concrete work. We're especially excited about him helping us with some of these deficiencies. So, two other things we're going to work on are policies. We've got a policy on service animals we want to review. It was a high priority recommendation from our ADA consultant, and also looking at our other power-driven motility devices. She felt like that policy is a little bit overreaching in terms of what its limitations are, and so we'll work with our matrix team on improving that policy. So that is our presentation for you all. Keenan noted that in our 2011 audit, we had approximately 750 deficiencies. Currently, we're down to 431, so we've made a lot of progress. We're excited to continue to make progress as we move forward with our new audit. I don't think this requires any action, it's just a review item.
Is there any other questions for Camille or Derek? Let's move on then to, thank you both.
Thanks, sir.
Move on to Mark. Action to award design services for King Park Master Plan.
So we're excited to bring this forward to you all. The King Park Master Plan process has been going on for some time. Keenan was actually at Jetty Rose Day last year getting feedback on park amenities and what was of interest. We've been assembling a steering committee. I think we've mentioned that in a few of our board notes to you all. Now is the time we need to bring on a professional. And one of the big things they'll help us do is to, as we develop the designs, test the budget as we move through the process. We currently have $300,000 in the capital budget to go towards the project. We also have some additional funds in trails and hardscapes that we can bring to the project. So it'll be important that we marry our master plan with funds available and then apply for an OSLAD grant later this summer. So what we'll ultimately bring forward to Jetty Rose Day is kind of a third master plan that's reflective of the feedback we get. A lot of the on-the-ground work will be staff-led, the majority of it. We really wanted to focus this proposal on what's critical for a consultant. So we'll be the ones going to the school, getting feedback from this steering committee. If we do have Jeff involved, it'll be kind of more at kind of Zoom meetings or virtual meetings to help us guide the process forward. And so it's a pretty lean proposal, and we'd recommend that you all approve the proposal for base $37,775 and a 10% contingency of $3,778. If you have any other questions you might have.
What if we don't get an OSLA grant?
Well, we usually think about those sort of contingencies. With $300,000, we would have more than enough to do the playground. The other high priority item I expect will be the plaza around the sculpture. If you look back at our recent playground projects, Blair, we had approximately $100,000 of playground equipment that went in. With Phillips, it was a while back, but that was about $75,000. So we should still be able to do a fair amount. There's other things we anticipate that will be included in this OSLAD grant. Some recreational amenities. The courts that are there right now in pretty poor condition. We're interested to see what the committee wants to do with those. The lighting is also something we'd like to see updated. So it'll really be kind of scale based upon what's priority for the grant, and if we don't get it, we'll scale back.
Is this a lot of grant around the 52 million still, or is this the one yet to come?
Current one, I think there's about half available.
26
this
million?
next round.
Yeah, there's around 26 million available, so it's the last couple of years have been in the 50s.
Now it's about half.
Now it's about half.
Yeah, I just. Well, I move that we award proposal for the master design services in the amount of $37,775 and a 10% contingency in the amount of $3,778 to the Barnesworth Group.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any further discussion or questions on the point? Hearing none, let's do a roll call, starting with Cedric.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously. Which is going to take us on to
Item
E, action to award Crystal Lake Park Family Aquatic Center slide repairs. And I'm going to take a break. I will turn the meeting over to Cedric, and I will, you guys.
Great. Well, so this is a project we've been looking forward to for some time. You probably noticed this slides are getting a bit faded, and it's truly a cosmetic, repair, but it's something that we feel we promised the voters when we get here. We established the R&R fund to maintain the facility. Did a lot of research, talked to a lot of different folks. Councilman Hunsaker, who designs the facility for us, actually recommended this group as one that they feel does really good work. We did talk to some other groups. We did a lot of research on the different paints that are out there, and this is the paint that's being used quite a bit in the industry, especially in the larger water parks as well. So we feel like it's a quality product and a quality provider. They are certified through the Sourcewell program, and as you can see, they provided a pretty competitive bid. That their original estimate would have been $82,000, and we're down to $50,000. So based on references we've done, we feel like this is a good group to work with. They're available beginning of May to do the work, and we recommend approval of this proposal. Yeah, if there's any questions you might have.
I know you've talked to us about it before. I think it was a great idea to wait so that it would be fresh so it's done in the spring, fresh in the summer. I appreciate you guys doing that and taking the time to really do it right. I appreciate it.
Well, I just want to point out the R&R fund. That was something, like Derek mentioned, we promised to set back 12.5% of our total revenues each year into an R&R fund, and to take care of these kinds of things and other things that break down. But this is definitely a piece that'll rejuvenate the overall pool site. It's a big piece when you're looking out at the whole center. So when people see it all bright and shiny, it's really making a big difference. And it definitely maintains it too, right? By having fresh, we got all the cracks and things filled last year.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, same group in fact.
Very different approach than, unfortunately, Crystal Lake is a very different pool, different maintenance, but it will last longer.
Well, I move to award the contract with Raindrop through Sourcewell in the amount of $50,103.07 and a 10% contingency in the amount of $5,010.
Second.
It moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or questions on the point? Hearing none, then the roll call starting with Meredith.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously. Action to award the Weaver Park KRT Trailhead project.
Katie's staff's going to walk us through, but while he's getting his thoughts together, just want to remind the board, way back when we started with our steering committee, we started talking about the goal of, hey, we're just going to get together and figure this out and raise some money and just build all this. One of the things we kind of tripped up around maybe 5 or 6 is, hey, how do we do that? We're essentially 3 staff groups with no authority. So I just want to remind the board, we did have all the boards approve 2 different MOUs. One was coordinating us, allowing us to meet and share information. The other was really about funding and how do we, authorize an agency like the Forest Preserve District to lead a project like this, ultimately approve bids, but allow provisional, all of that. So Andy will probably and Derek will give a little bit of background on that or mention that, but really pleased that we took the time out to get those things in place in hopes of an opportunity like this for funding that allow us to hopefully provide a seamless construction project.
Yeah, so Tim mentioned the agreements we have. We have the most recent one that was this 2022 agreement, and it's very specifically one that addresses the ECO funds and the fact that we cooperatively work with the Forest District. They will be the contract holder. They are the ones that have the funds from DCO currently, but the work will take place on our property. And so this IGA was written for that very purpose. And then we had an additional one that was, I'm sorry, this was the initial one that we that allows us to work cooperatively on a project, the KRT. It's this one in 2024. This is the one that's specific to the DCO funds, the $11.2 million. So we're in good standing to basically recommend approval of this contract, knowing that the CCFPD will be the actual contract holder, and this has all been reviewed with Matt Gehring, and he's feel that this is the best way to move forward.
So we're like project managing this with their paying. They are, as the contract holder, they're dealing with all the expenses and they have the funds.
Correct.
Only one group could receive the grant, so
right.
that kind of created the situation. We would have loved to have had it split out, but, we can work through this way as well with IGs in place.
With that, Amy will present.
Yeah, so that IGA, that final IGA with the cost was completed, I think it went to the board in December of '23 and signed in January of '24. And so there's basically one big pot of money from DCEO that's to accomplish a number of those projects, some of those that I mentioned in the update earlier tonight. So in 2024, we started working with Farnsworth. That was kind of our lead agency on the design team. And we had selected them jointly with the Vermilion County and Champaign County Forest Preserve District. And I've updated a number of times in the past few months on our overall project. So it includes a pavilion. It's very similar to the recent pavilion we had done, the Updeck Learning Pavilion by the Nature Center. And then to pave the existing aggregate parking lot, that's all in the base bid. And then we have two alternates in the bid. Alternate one was for expanding that parking lot by 20 spaces. And then alternate two was the addition of parking lot lighting. And as we had mentioned, we've been seeing some really, really good bids recently. And part of our goals with a lot of these bid approvals that we have tonight too was to get a lot of these bids over the course of the winter and get them out in January when contractors are looking to set their schedules for the coming year. And that's kind of a big reason why we have a number of bids tonight. So it was a pretty successful endeavor. And we had a lot of interest on this bid and the next bid approval as well. So we had our bid advertised beginning January 4th, and we held a mandatory pre-bid meeting on January 21st, and then an opening on January 29th. We had a total of 25 companies that obtained bid documents with 5 contractors providing bids, and all that bid tab is provided as an attachment to your memo there. And as Derek mentioned, all the funds are available through DCEO, so we don't have any local park district funding associated with this portion of the project. Right now, it's all part of that $11.2 million. That's all through Champaign County Forest Preserve District and that intergovernmental agreement that brings us and Vermilion County jointly cooperating for the overall benefit of the KRT. And so we have the base bid and alternate one, alternate number 2. That was a total of $951,575. There was about $990,000 associated with construction for the pavilion and parking lot. That was our portion of the $11.2 million. So we've come in under what our budget is for the grant, which is fantastic. And so in the expense and revenue section, it just shows it zeroing out where the revenues all come from DCEO funds via Champaign County Forest Preserve District. They are the contract holder. So our recommendation tonight is saying for you all to award the base, alternate 1 and alternate 2, and then that's pending a final approval from the Champaign County Forest Preserve District. Their board meeting is next Thursday.
There's no contingency.
That's what I was gonna explain.
Every one of your commissioners.
So on our contracts, we typically
Right.
ask the board to authorize a contingency for us to work within so that we can work with the contractor and get those things approved. CCFPD does not do it that way. Ultimately, this is their contract that it's under, so we don't have a contingency to authorize. We will work with them, and normal means of going through change orders with their board and getting approvals for this project. So it's just going to be a cooperative thing where we're going to work with the CCFPD to get those items processed. And my plan then is to just keep you all updated as we move through the project on what we're doing with change orders, just so you're aware too as we go forward. But since they are the contract holder, they will be approving those change orders and things. So
It does make us a little bit nervous.
we've never done that before.
It's a new approach.
So we could come back though, and with a request for more?
So my understanding is the Forest Preserve District will go to their board each month and then have change orders for the board to approve.
But I guess my question is, we're under budget. Do we, but it's their contract, so they get to decide where that additional, whatever, $40,000 that we're under budget actually is distributed, as opposed to whether or not it's used as a contingency for our part of the project. This is why we have to be good friends.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So, and we're working with the contractor right now on breaking this bid amount up into different categories of work. That includes some contingency funds that are already assigned to our project.
Okay.
But there's that supplemental $40,000 that won't be in the rescope budget. But if we find that we need those funds through the project, the process will be the Forest District will award a change order, their boards will, and we'll keep you all apprised of that. But since they're the contract holder, they're the ones that need to handle the change orders.
I guess also then, they're not going to come to us and say, we're just gonna have to change the scope of the project.
Correct, yeah. We're actually working on a change order already, much like with health and wellness. DCO establishes goals for minority and minimum participation. And our contractor was a little shy on one of those categories. So they're working on identifying some additional minority-owned businesses through the CDAP program, the State of Illinois program, that we can bring in the fold. It'll likely cost a little bit more, but we're expecting to do much like we did for our health and wellness facility.
Just a reminder too, at the beginning of the project, Representative Adams was looking and seeking due to the funding source for multi-agency, multi-jurisdictional, ideally multi-area. So that's what we got in front of us. It works for us. We did wonder how we would manage things, but just keep working the project till we get there to the bids. Obviously the MOUs allow us to support and share and cooperate. So we reasonably expect it would go smooth.
And I move the Urbana Park District Board of Commissioners award pending final approval from the Champaign County Forest Preserve District, the base bid and alternates 1 and 2 for the Weaver Park KRT Trailhead Pavilion project in the amount of $951,575 to Mid-Illinois Concrete and Excavation and Company of Urbana, Illinois.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or questions on the point? Hearing none, do a roll call starting with Edward.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously.
But also mentioned Mid-Illinois is a very familiar group to us. They did the playground project in Denver Park, and they also donated services for the demolition. So we're happy to work with them.
Moving on then to item G, action to award Southridge Park Trail improvement.
So another bid that came in well under our estimate, which is very good news. And I've been trying to keep everyone updated as we've worked through the design and getting ready for bid on the scope of the project. What led to it was we had a pavement analysis report. This was a high priority section that needed needed replaced. It was also cited in the ADA transition plan, as Derek had mentioned. And as our capital planning group, it's something that we've identified as a high priority for a number of years, and I've included it in capital budgets 23, 24, and 25. And the Board of Commissioners approved an engineering agreement with Bear Graham in September of 24 to put together these bid documents, and we got the bid out in January 2nd. And this includes the removal of all the existing asphalt and replacing with the rock base and 5-foot wide concrete path. And then there's 4 new bench pads, and then we have that accessible parking space that we've shown you in meetings past along Myra Ridge Road or Drive, and that's very similar to what we did at Blair Park, and that was also recommended as part of the ADA transition plan. We had a lot of interest in this bid as well. I think we had less plan holders, but we had more bidders. So we had 7 total bidders on this one. Like I said, it was advertised beginning January 2nd, and we had an opening on that same day as our Weaver Trailhead on January 29th. There's no alternates. It was just a base bid project. And you can see the bids come with the bid tabulation on a letter of recommendation that we have from Fair Graham. And our low bidder was Midwest Asphalt. And we have worked with them in the past. They actually were our general contractor for the Blair Park project. So they've been good to work with as well. So, and then we have very competitive pricing on that. And so, like I said, we have funds available in 23, 24, and 25. Those are all shown in the memo. And then we're recommending a 15% contingency with that contract, and that would be in the amount of $38,000 or $38,067. And we're recommending the board to award to Midwest Asphalt.
Is there any additional expense using with Fair Graham to supervise this, or?
Yeah, part of that, as part of their engineering agreement, there was some construction observation. I think it was 3 visits, but that's part of that as well.
Okay,
And then
so
we're
that's
planning on doing
already
some
paid for.
testing. Yeah, we have that under contract still.
I just want to say that on both this project and the previous one, I don't think Andy could have done a better job of getting out the bid at that time. I mean, January 2nd is just, yeah. And
Thank you.
Well, I move that we award the bid for the Southridge Park Trail Improvement Project in the amount of $253,770, and a construction contingency in the amount of $38,067 to Midwest Asphalt of Tilton, Illinois.
Second?
That's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion or questions on the point? Hearing none, do a roll call starting with
Aye.
Meredith. Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously. All 4 commissioners voted.
Good job, guys.
There was no new business removed from the consent agenda, so brings us to Roman numeral 11, comments from commissioners. All right.
I said one small comment, and maybe, I just kind of wanted to bring it up, and maybe we can discuss it more in like a study session. But I was just wondering, are there, say for instance, a staff member wanted to address the board, just like in general, are there any avenues for that, or is there any processes for doing that we have?
Yes. I think there's a number of ways, depending on, I'm not sure what, context, but certainly there can be, we have opportunities for staff groups, meetings, staff trainings, public comment. Certainly anybody can address the board if they have a concern about anything. Does that help? I'm not sure.
Are you asking about a specific identifiable policy, saying that any district employee can come in?
Or if there's just like, or if like, I'm just kind of curious, I'm just like.
We've had numbers of examples, back to our COVID policy that we put together. Certainly there's a wide variety of opinions on that. Number of staff determined, to come meet with the board at public session. Certainly an appropriate time to, come and express a concern. Each person is heard. I think that's at least one way. I think if somebody wanted to talk to a board member, so we contact staff and find out what's the appropriate way to do that. What's what do you recommend? Just so we're all not fielding calls day and night.
Right.
We do have a protocol of supervisors, and hopefully we can understand how to help them in the best way. like the general public, staff's available to talk with the board at every board meeting.
Okay.
Any other comments? Hearing none, do we have a motion to go into executive session?
In accordance with Section 2, Part C, Exception Number 1 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act, I move to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of discussing an employment matter.
That's moved and seconded. Any discussion on the point? Hearing none, let's do a roll call, starting with Meredith.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously, so we will be going into executive session.
You'll